Hi, all. Welcome to the June 2023 astrology forecast. So, we have three planets turning retrograde in June, beginning with Neptune on June 3rd. And Neptune retrograde, in my perspective, can be a great time to deepen your connection to the dream world. It's retrograde in Pisces, which is the sign that Neptune rules. And in Jyotish, Vedic astrology, they consider retrograde planets to enhance or exaggerate the energetics of that planet. It's also an inward turning of that planet, but perhaps we can access those energies more readily. I think with Neptune retrograde, I put the crystal here because it's a time where we can maybe see things more clearly for what they are, especially depending on what your relationship to Neptune is, right? Because Neptune is spirituality, but it's also delusion and distortion. And so I think Neptune turning retrograde can be a time to defog our windshield, so to speak. So if you've been in entanglements that are that you've had a hard time maybe seeing clearly, whether that's a behavior pattern or a relationship to a person, place, thing, perhaps this period from the 3rd to December 3rd can allow you to really kind of take the blinders off and see things from a more realistic perspective, potentially, and access that information through your intuition. Pluto goes retrograde on June 11th until October 10th. Now, this is important if you were born in 1990 and you've got your North Node at 28 Cap, because that's where Pluto is right now. And well, really starting the 11th will be, sorry. That's a really important transit. Check out my video called Pluto Conjunct North Node Transit because I really go into that more deeply there. But essentially, this period, Pluto had its little toe dip into Aquarius. Right now, we're in that. But starting on the 11th, it'll go back into Capricorn for the last time. And so, if you have your North Node there, late degree Cap, this is the maybe last hurrah, so to speak, for you to really let go of what you need to release in order to walk your path more fully and align more fully with your North Node. So check that video out. It's an important transit. Then we also have Saturn going retrograde on the 17th. Saturn in Pisces, as I've mentioned in a lot of my forecasts, has a lot to do with, because it's been hanging out there for a while, it has a lot to do with issues around water, contamination of water, as we've seen over the past few months, such as some of like the spillages. There was even a spill here on Maui, in the Honolulu Bay. And so hopefully with Saturn retrograding, we'll see potentially less of these issues for that period. I think on a more personal level, Saturn retrograde can be a time that we can rest from building. So this is maybe a good time to retreat, especially with those other two outer planets retrograde as well for June. Just a good time to do more inner work and focus less on more of that outer hard work that Saturn usually represents. So let's go over the days of intensity for June. Days of intensity are very cathartic days that can be disruptive, depending on what your aim is. Maybe you want to utilize or channel that intense energy. Starting on June 1st, we've got the Scorpio moon, which, by the way, Scorpio moon is a challenged moon position, squaring Mars and Pluto. On the 3rd, we have the full moon in Sag, and it's actually at 13 degrees Sag, and the Sabian symbol for this full moon is a widow's past brought to light. Full moons are typically days of intensity, I believe. This one, I think, is squaring Saturn. And a widow's past brought to light has a lot to do with dealing with accepting rather, our imperfections or our flaws, particularly as they pertain to our relationships. And I think this is appropriate given that for nearly all of June, we have Venus opposing Pluto. And what I think that'll bring up for a lot of people is shadow around relating and relationships and doing some of that mining perhaps that needs to get done in order to release the past, right? So I thought it was interesting that the full moon Sabian symbol really echoes a lot of those themes that will probably be felt throughout the month of June. On the 7th, we've got Aquarius moon conjunct Pluto. I deleted the word Pluto by accident. And this is an eclipse trigger from, I believe it was let me check my notes, the October eclipse in Leo. So eclipse triggers are when we have a lunation or a planetary alignment that is exactly on the degree or aspecting the degree of a recent eclipse, and usually that can bring about eclipse-like events, which can be on the more intense side. June 14th, we have Leo moon conjunct Jupiter, and the moon's also moon conjunct Jupiter and Mars squaring Uranus and Mercury squaring Saturn. So I wrote an accident alert because there's kind of two aspects that really point to accidents, and that's Mars squaring Uranus and Mercury squaring Saturn. Mars squares Uranus from the 14th through the end of the month, and it's just really important to be mindful of this. If you tend to do more like risk-taking activities, though even we could argue just getting in a car and driving is a risk-taking activity, just be more mindful and just slow down because Mars square Uranus can be very abrupt and sudden and kind of like explosive energy. So it can lead to accidents, but with awareness, we can mitigate this. So keep that in mind. That particular day, the 14th, is just like kind of loaded with volatile aspects. And it was interesting, actually, this past month, May, it was a moon conjunct Mars day where I saw literally 3 accidents on the road in the same day on this small island that I'm on right now. And it definitely, I took note of that. It was also coinciding with the T square of Mars, Pluto, and Jupiter. So I think that had something to do with it as well. But I was just hearing about a lot of events like that as well. On the 17th, we've got the new moon squaring Neptune. And I put this as a day of intensity because new moons are already very like receptive energy and we're very maybe open psychically, but squaring Neptune is like enhancing that. So it could be a day to be more protective of your energy, if that makes sense. Like maybe not do the group ayahuasca ceremony because there could be like that more spirited energy that wants to kind of kind of get into your field. So I would say it's a good day to just like put up more psychic protections. On the 20th, we've got the moon opposite Pluto squaring Chiron, and this is another eclipse trigger. So this is triggering the eclipse from October 25th at 2 degrees Scorpio, I believe it was. And then on the 22nd, we have a moon conjunct Mars day. As I mentioned last month, I noticed this was like a heavy accident aspect. And on the 22nd, I'm saying it because not only do we have moon conjunct Mars, but we've got Mars squaring Uranus as well on that day. And then on the 27th, we've got the moon opposite Chiron and the moon square Pluto. So let's go into the more harmonic days of the month. So on the 2nd, we've got Mercury sextiling Saturn and Venus trining Saturn. I really like this day for learning or communicating, studying, and that's because we've just got a nice flow of Mercury with Saturn and then Venus with Saturn. So it's a grand water trine this day. Could be a nice aspect also for creating something. On the 4th, we've got Mercury conjunct Uranus. I'm saying this is a harmonic day because Mercury and Uranus really represent 2 octaves of the same energy. So Mercury is like the mind and communication, and then Uranus is those like inspirations that come from a more ethereal place. And it's kind of this ingenious aspect when you have Mercury conjunct Uranus. So it can be really good for tapping into that source consciousness to like come up with a solution or something like really practical and tangible. Mercury conjunct Uranus could be like inventing something or just having that sudden flash of inspiration. I think because Mars is also squaring Uranus for a lot of the month, it could be that we see around this time period new insights or new inventions or creative solutions, innovative solutions to problems in a positive way that these planets are connecting. On the 9th, we have Mercury sextiling Neptune. I always like Mercury Neptune aspects for music. I think they're really good for meditation. They're really good for any sort of like spiritual practices as well, or art kind of practices. Anything where you need to kind of get into that more collective consciousness state, you could say. On the 11th, we've got the moon conjunct Neptune and Mercury trining Pluto. This is also the day that Mercury moves into Gemini, which is a really strong placement for Mercury. And so the 11th could be, this is a nice day for like psychic kind of awareness, healing as well, I would say, and just getting kind of tapping into some like deeper insight. On the 19th, we've got Jupiter sextiling Saturn. This is a nice energy between these two planets that can allow us to have like an idea or an inspiration and build upon it. And then on the 28th, we've got the Sun trining Saturn. So these are the days where the energy is more harmonic, you could say. Finally, we're going to go over the key dates for June. So the 3rd, as I mentioned, Neptune's going retrograde. On the 4th, we've got the full moon in Sagittarius. On the 5th, Venus enters, ingresses, is what we call it, into Leo, the sign of Leo. Now, this can bring about a lot of passion because not only do we have Venus entering Leo, but Mars will be conjoining Venus for the majority of the month, for all of the month, actually. And so when that happens, we have Mars activating Venus. And so that can be quite amorous, that can be quite passionate. Venus and Leo might bring about issues of wanting to be kind of like seen and in the spotlight, right? That could come up. Venus and Leo could be a little bit on the more like vain side of things too, bring up issues of like vanity and maybe wanting to beautify one's outward appearance or kind of put oneself on more on display. But it's interesting because actually those who were born in 1991 have were born under Mars conjunct Venus and Leo. So this might be an interesting summer for them. June 11th, we've got Pluto, as I mentioned, retrograding back into Capricorn for the last time, and until January when it goes back when it moves officially into Aquarius. And then we have on the 11th Mercury ingressing into Gemini. So Mercury in Gemini times is a really good time for studying, for learning and communicating. And I would say the esoteric arts as well, including alchemy. It's a very auspicious time for that. On the 17th, Saturn stations retrograde in Pisces. And then on the 18th, we have got the new moon. And on the 21st, the sun ingresses into Cancer. So this is the temporal waves for June. If you guys have any particular questions, comment below related to the transits. not personal questions related to your chart, because I don't answer those in a comment, because it's just not enough room for me to answer those. So if you want personal readings, I have a website, Radian, Radian, guidance.com, and I do personal sessions that include your own unique transits. So, how these planetary motions affect you on an individual level through your own journey and life path. So, if you're interested in that, you can find that on my website. I thank you for tuning in and for your support. And I wish you a wonderful day wherever you are.